Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make this puzzle slider card. I saw the idea made by Julie Brown, who'd seen the idea made by Susan Campfield, who had probably seen it made by somebody else. So that just highlights this great sharing. It's lovely casing, copy and share everything. So I'm copying and I'm sharing. So this is how the card looks. It opens up like a regular card. As always, it fits inside a standard envelope because it ends up being 5.5 by 4.25. But I think it's great. It uses designer series paper and really highlights it. I'll actually bring in an alternate one that I made. So this was a different version. Well, it's the same card, obviously it's just different colors, and that was using this piece of designer series paper, and this was the piece that was left over. So I then went on and made this one, and let me bring in the ingredients so I can share with you how I got this piece of paper. The designer series paper is Thoughtful Journey, and it's a 6x6 paper, and the piece we need is actually 5 by 3 3/4. So I chopped the bottom off to make the 5, because on the piece that I used, the top was a really nice piece. That's what I got. But then I only needed 5. And then I thought, well, if I cut it all off, I'm only going to have half a tree. So in order to make 5, rather than cut 1 inch, I cut 1/4 and 3/4. But you understand where I'm going. You just pick the piece that you want that is 5 by 3 3/4, and then you can cut your cardstock around to suit. So that was the original piece. This is what I ended up with. So I'll just pop those out of the way quickly. So that's the piece of designer series paper, 5 by 3 3/4. We need a card base, and this time it's 9.5 by 4.25, and it's scored at 1 and 2 inches. And then you can either say it's scored at 7.5 and 8.5. I actually turned mine round and did 1 and 2 inches. There is the smaller layer, the 4 by 5.25 to go on the inside, and then there's a whole quarter sheet of cardstock, which is 5.5 by 4.25, and we'll cut those up in just a moment. So let me just go ahead and get the score lines folded, bring in my bone folder, and you do have to be quite particular that your folds match up, that they match up on the front and the back. This one, small confession, did not, and I had to sort of take it apart a little way. Luckily I hadn't finished the whole thing, because the pieces in the middle were kind of off a little bit. So you know how some, you see, look here, it's not going to be exactly the same. So I just want to scrunch that over. So as long as there isn't any overhang on the back, we are good to go. So that's the main card. I'll just quickly put the inside layer in so I don't get confused, because they're both basic white, as you can see, and one is 5.5 by 4.25 and the other one's 4 by 5.25. So I don't want to cut down the inside layer. So pop it in. So we've got the border around, and that's the body of the card, waiting for the pieces that we are going to attach to it. So back to the cutting. We are going to be very particular how we do this. So bring in the paper trimmer, and it was 5 by 3 3/4. As I can see, I've chopped it in half. So half of 3 3/4 is 1 7/8. So I just lined it up at 1 7/8 on the paper trimmer and cut it in half. Then what we need to do is we need to cut it into pieces. I'll just bring in the card. I will put a template actually on my blog, so you could go there and follow along, but you do need to make sure that you've got your pieces oriented properly. So 5, we're going to cut this one at 3. So line it up at 3 on the paper trimmer and cut it off. So you've got a piece that's 3 and a piece that's 2, and that's going to be the top. And then what we need to do is we need to cut a piece that's 2 And because we're really good at mathematics, we've got 2 and we're left with a 3. But they are off center with each other, which is what, this is what makes the puzzle piece. I actually think of it more as like a Tetris piece, but anyway. Then we'll go back to the piece of basic white, which is a full quarter of a sheet of cardstock. So it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So we'll cut this in half, and half of 4 1/4 is 2 1/8. Line it up to the 2 1/8 mark. And then we're going to cut them. Now, this is plain white, and I know it sounds silly to do it. We could just cut 2 pieces and turn one over, but I think it's better just stick with the program. So we'll cut one that's 2 1/4, and we're left with 3 1/4. That's for those pieces. And then we'll cut this one at 3 1/4, and of course we're left with 2 1/4. Like I say, you could just cut 2 1/4 off both pieces and finagle them around, but the longer piece is not so bad. This piece, you have to be careful that you orient it right. If you've put your card on the designer series paper the wrong way around, you're going to have wide at one side and skinny little narrows, and you want an even border around. So the ones that look like a square but are not quite, they are the ones you have to pay the most attention to. So I think that's done with the paper trimmer for now. So we'll bring in the pieces and we will attach them to their counterparts. But like I say, you have to, on the squares, it's more important that you pay attention. Obviously a rectangle, you don't. I think you could work out if your rectangle wasn't the right way around. So we'll pop that one on there. Again, the square, it's the same on the top as the bottom. It's just 1/8 of an inch different. So they look the same, but they're not quite. And we'll pop that on there. So we can go back and make sure that we've got the pattern all correct and we're not losing pieces as we go along. This one was actually a little bit easier because the trees were a bit larger. This one, although it looks nice when it's the whole piece, each individual piece wasn't so startlingly different. We'd have to pay attention with that one. And then what we're going to do is we'll stamp a greeting. So I am going to use a piece of basic white, and this is 5/8 by 1 3/4. And I'm using the thank you stamp from the ferns, wild ferns, and I'm going to use the petunia pop. But one of the cards I did recently, this is quite a strong colour, so I'm actually going to stamp it off. So make sure we've got it fully inked up. Stamp it once onto a piece of scratch paper, and then when you stamp it on your piece of cardstock, it comes out just slightly lighter, because these flowers, they are petunia pop, but they're a lighter refrain of that colour. So now we've got all the ingredients, we just need to go ahead and build them. So we're going to put adhesive, 2 full rows of adhesive down the outer fold line, and then we'll just build it according to the pieces so it lines up fully. There's no layer going around it, and this one can go right to the edge and but right up against the bottom one. And then we'll repeat the process on the other outer edge, put adhesive all the way down, and then this one, just have to turn it around because I'm a lefty and I can't stick things on right-handedly, not with any sense of precision anyway. And then we know that's going here, so again I'll just flip it around so I know I'm getting it as evenly as I can, and pop that one on. So when you close the 2 pieces, they are now going to be even. You can see that one just not quite. the pull. There we go. And then I'm just going to stick the thank you on. And they can just go in that little corner. So there is a second version of the original card. We'll bring in the other one just so you can see it. It's really quite nice and effective. It just gives it a little bit of a different angle from, it's sort of a baby gatefold, you could even call it, but it's really quite nice. So if you like what you've seen, please consider subscribing. Give me a thumbs up. I would really appreciate that. If you've got a comment or you want to ask a question, pop those in the description box below. Like I said, there will be templates and all the instructions and directions will be on my blog. So pop on over there and give me a follow there as well, if you would be so kind. I hope you like what you've seen. And last but not least, thanks so much for watching.